All right, welcome everybody. We're live tonight on this Saturday night. Oh, hurry up and mute that before it came on. I always forget that. I got my monitor I got a big monitor and I gotta mute it or we're gonna get me talking over myself. So anyway, we're live on this Saturday night. I hope you all had a wonderful day. It is September 16th, 2023, 9:52 p.m. Again, a little bit late, but I've just I don't know, just doing stuff and trying to get ready for this. It was hard going back and getting all those tabs back up because it just takes so long. So it took longer than I thought. Anyway, so I hope you're all doing well. Ready to go tonight on the 3 different stories of Saul's conversion testimony, aka Paul. It's funny his name changed out of nowhere without an explanation. Isn't that interesting? You know, when God changes your name or Jesus changes your name, he tells you why. Remember Peter, Cephas, Rock. Jesus explained why Peter's name was getting changed. And God tells why, well, most of the time in the Old Testament. Anyway, Paul just all of a sudden he's Saul. Saul is all of a sudden Paul one day and no explanation. Doesn't say why. What if it's not even the same person? That's funny. Anyway, so I got a lot going on tonight. We are going to cover a lot of territory. If you don't know about Paul's 3 different stories of his conversion, his testimony, which right there, just think of that. Somebody's got 3 different testimonies, how they got saved, how Jesus came into their life. 3 completely different stories, huh? Anyway, but if you don't know about three different stories of Paul's conversion, you're going to be you're going to learn some stuff tonight because I have gone over this many times over the years, but for the last few years anyway. But there's a lot of people who haven't heard it, so we're going to go over that. We're going to show you how there's 3 completely different stories that about Paul on his road to Damascus. And stories of Paul. Actually, you know what? I should have put that on. I'm going to put that in the title real quick. Road to Damascus testimony. That's what I should have. Yeah, so the road to Damascus. Now, Damascus is huge in the Bible, in the Old Testament. I don't even know. We could find out. How many times is Damascus in the Bible? A lot.
My education level is pretty, not.
Oh, let's see. Let's see here. Let me change it. Sorry, my phone. Turn my phone on. All right. The 3 different stories of Paul's road to Damascus story. Anyway, and another thing you're going to really kind of be surprised about is where he got this fake story. I mean, I don't know, you could believe it if you want, but where he got this story, you're going to be surprised. Road to damn ass cuss. Road to damn ass cuss. Damn ass cuss. Testimony. 3 different stories. Road to the man. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Let me get that. You get 100 letters for the. You get 100 letters for the title, which usually is plenty. Oops. I actually had it in all caps. Road to damn ass cuss. Testimony. All right, that's better. So as title says, the 3 different stories of Saul's Road to Damascus testimony. Oh, you know, I should have done. A second. There you go. There, that's better. All right. So yes, and where the source of this story, where he got it from, he may have borrowed, in air quotes, borrowed this story from somebody, and we will see. Huh. All right. Anyway, I think that should do it. So that is the planned stand for tonight. Hope everyone's having a good weekend. Doggone it. I'm pulling it back up. There you go. All right, that should do it. Good. All right. So yeah, we got a lot to cover tonight. I think I got everything ready to go. Yeah, I'm gonna try coming on now that it's getting dark earlier. Maybe starting next week. Maybe next week I'm gonna come on. I'll give a heads up. I'm thinking starting Monday, I'm gonna start coming on at 9 for now, and then eventually a couple months will be at 8. Because during the winter time, it's just it gets dark so early that it seems a lot later. So anyway, we kind of come on late in the summertime because it's in the summer it's light out till 8 or 9 o'clock. But now it's getting kind of dark early. So we're gonna switch the time up, coming up pretty soon again. This works out a little better for everybody to come on a little earlier in the winter. So that's the plan for next week. I'm not really sure what we're gonna do. Do I? I don't think I have anything. I don't have, might not have it planned for Monday yet, but I think it's gonna be one or two things. So anyway, we'll probably start something new next Monday. Tomorrow is Sunday night, and tomorrow, usually it'll just be a short chat because Sunday night is very common that nobody comes in on a Sunday night. Maybe one person or two. I mean, on a rare occasion, it might get like a bunch of people on a Sunday night, but that's just kind of a weird fluke once in a while. Not sure why, but most of the time it's really dead on Sunday. So usually Sunday I don't plan too much. I want to plan something really good, and then like with tons of information, put a bunch of work into it, and then there's nobody shows up. So or watch on the replay either. So. And I don't care. Usually, I think most of my views are on the replay. So, and maybe next week or when I switch it back up to 9 and then 8 o'clock, maybe it might be early enough for people who find this too late right now. My cat wants to go out. Hold on a second. He's meowing at the door. Hold on a second. The little friends are outside. Isn't that right? Let's go. Come on. Let's go. He knows that there he's running right over there. He knows at nighttime all the stray cats come out. They come up here to eat. I have food out there for him. And so every night the stray cats come up to eat, and he's friends with all of them. So he likes to go out and visit his stray cat friends. So that's exactly what he did. He's meowing at the door. That's funny. Yep, they're gonna come up eating. But I gave him an extra treat the other day. I cut up some hot dogs, and they liked those. They ate them right up. little pieces of hot dogs. There he goes. He's out with his friends. Yeah, I cut up hot dogs, put it on top of their food, and they love that. Anyway, and then last week I had some um, raw chicken wings, and animals. It's safe for animals to eat um, raw. Even your dogs can eat raw chicken bones. But anyway, they love those. They love the chicken. As long as they don't cook the bones, it's safe. When I got my dog Caleb, I got him from an Amish farm, and they were throwing like raw chicken to these puppies. I'm like, ew. And then I found out later, no, that's actually good for them. It's normal. Dogs can chew up bones chicken bones, as long as they're not cooked. I don't give them to them. I don't give my dogs that anymore. I mean, since he's gotten here, he don't need no bones. But anyway, all right. I'm gonna pull up a couple things and get started here. Let's see, where do we start? So what I have up is the three versions. If anybody wants to know what are the three versions of Paul's conversion story, you have three of them. You have the first one is in the book of Acts. Well, all three of them are in the book of Acts. For the first one is Acts verse 9. I mean, chapter 9. Verse 1 to 31. So the first story is well, actually, I'll turn the camera on so you can see it. There it goes. Oh, it's nice and big. Look at that. This is a Blue Letter Bible. I like this version here. So this is the first version that you see. Now, I'm going to do a spoiler alert because I want people to know this if you don't know this about this story, about Paul's three conversion stories. Several lines he stole straight from. Well, you can decide if he stole it. It is straight from the play called The Bacchae, about Dionysus, and it was back in 400 BC, maybe like 430 or something, but it was like 400 BC, which is like 400 years, 450 years, 475 years before Luke wrote Acts. Well, hey, Grace, how you doing tonight? Greetings, salutations to you too. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend and an awesome Saturday. Hope everyone went well for you. Grace knows about the three stories in Acts. I've gone over it a few times, like I said. I'm going to back it up so we can see it a little better. Or so you can see it better. I can see it just fine. How you doing tonight, Grace? How was your Saturday night? How's your Minnesota Saturday night, eh? Don't you know? We got hot dish here in Minnesota. And pop. Alright. I think a little tricky. I wonder what's magnification on 175. Okay, that might be why it's so big and clear. It won't fit in the picture. All right, I was wondering, like, why doesn't this fit in the picture? It was at 175 magnification, 175%. Anyway, that's a little better. At least now it fits on the screen, and you can still see it. That's my dogs. They're all settling in. They just had their din. Oh, guys, they just had their supper. They did not have hot dish. They might have had a dog's version of hot dish. Oh. Hold on a second. Wait. All right, sorry about that. If the cat's dish gets empty and I don't put something on it right away, the canned food, he pushes the plate on the floor and smashes it. And so I got to get one of those bowls with the rubber bottom. My dogs have it, but I need a small one with a rubber bottom so he can't slide it like that. I'm running out of dishes. Anyway, so I had to quickly fill his dish before he breaks another plate. You're stuffing your face with noodle soup. Had a good day, except Kitten is sick. Oh, sorry to hear she's sick. Noodle soup sounds good. I just had a couple tacos. I didn't eat all day. I had a couple Cheez-Its. So I went to the dollar store today and I got some stuff. And if you buy $25 worth of stuff, you get a $5 off coupon. And anyway, for the second time, I tried to get Dawn dish soap, and first time they didn't have any. I bought some off-brand. I was at a store last week. Actually, I was at a store a few days ago, well, maybe last week, and I bought some off-brand dish soap, and it is not good. So tonight I went up and ran up to the dollar store and bought a few things. And the guy got distracted. I saw him ring up the dish soap. Then I saw him, instead of putting it to the right into the bag, he put it to the left on the counter. My brain said, better not forget to bag that up. And then he got busy with the coupon. And then the lady came out and she was talking about the coupon and trying to teach him something. And then, the rest of the purchase went through. And anyway, didn't think nothing of it. Got home, ate dinner, went to do my dishes. I'm like, oh, heck no. And I remember that dude putting the soap to the left. So anyway, I got my stupid other off-brand stuff. But anyway, I called up there just a little bit ago before they closed. And she said, you want to come back now? I said, no, I'm not coming back. It's too late. I'll come back tomorrow. She said, yeah. At first, she didn't believe me. I said, yeah, dude said it to the left. Looked at the left of the cash register. She said, did you put anything back? The guy goes, no. And I said, no, ask that other dude, the bigger guy. And he goes, she asked him, he goes, oh, yeah, I forgot to put it in her bag. I'm like, see. Anyway, I know I bought some soap. Don't tell me I didn't buy no dang soap. I made that mistake before, too. Never again. Off-brand dish soap is, it is trash. You know what I mean? But the town I went to last week, I don't know, it was Thursday or Friday, whenever I went into that other town, they didn't have any name brand stuff. It was a store next to the grocery store. Anyway, I went there to get dog treats, and I figured I'd pick up some Dawn dish soap, and they didn't have none. I'm like, what the heck? They all have little bottles, at least a little one. And so I settled for some, I don't know, yellow stuff. Maybe lemon, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't cheap either. And it's just trash. So anyway, today I had the bottle. I went up there tonight. Me and the dog hopped in the truck tonight, went up there. They're open till 10 o'clock at night. Anyway, ran up there and got a few things, came back, and I'm like, oh, heck no. I had a flashback of him putting it to the left, and I thought, oh, heck no. Yep, there it was. They almost ripped me off. So, anyway, but the dogs had a fun ride to town. They love riding, that's for sure. So yeah, we had fun tonight. Okay. This is too dark to go back right now. All right. So where I'm at here. All right, so if anybody doesn't know, what the heck that was. If anybody doesn't know, there's 3 stories of the conversion of Saul. He's not Paul yet. And you know what? Yeah, I have thought a few times, what if Saul and Paul are 2 different people? Because, there's no mention of all of a sudden he just comes to the door and people are calling him Paul. How do we know it's the same person? I mean, like the 2 Paul McCartneys. All right, but anyway, this first story, like I said, is in chapter 9, verse 1 through 35. Okay, 1 through 35. Yeah, I got a lot to say about this. Yeah. Anyway. All right, so that's the first one, chapter 9, verse 1 through 34, whatever it was. Second time it's told is in Acts, the book of Acts, or Act 22, verse 1 or 6 through 16. And the third time this story is told is in the book of Acts. It's also called the Acts of the Disciple. Isn't that weird? In this one, they call it Act with no S, Act 22. And this one they say Acts with the S. It's supposed to be Acts because the real name of it is the Acts of the Apostles. People call it the book of Acts, but it's the Acts of the Apostles. So it should have an S in there, Acts. Anyway, or you can just spell it AX. Who's counting, right? So 3 stories. Yeah, the third one is in chapter 26, verse 12 to 18. 3 different audiences are being told this story. This is the book of Acts is written by Luke, the same person that wrote the Gospel of Luke. The Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts written by. And just remember that the book of Acts and the Gospel of Luke are both written to Theophilus, a guy named Theophilus. Who's Theophilus? I don't know, but he's answering to Theophilus, whoever Luke and Theophilus are. Luke answers to Theophilus, and Luke is given an account of Paul's doings or whatever. And so this is just really the book of Acts is a letter to Theophilus, a second letter. That's why it's called Luke 1 and Luke 2. And later it got changed to the Gospel of Luke and the Acts of the Apostles. But it started out Luke 1 and Luke 2. So Acts used to be Luke 2, the second letter of Luke. So it'd be like first letter of Luke is the Gospel of Luke. Second letter of Luke is conversion, or the book of Acts. So anyway, keep that in mind. This is a letter. Now, there's 3 different stories of Paul's conversion. Saul, we say Saul because he wasn't Paul yet. So Saul's got 3 stories of how he got converted. Now, just wrap your mind around that. Can you imagine somebody on YouTube telling their testimony, and they've got 3 different testimony videos up, all 3 of them different? That wouldn't even fly on YouTube, but somehow it flies in the book of Acts. So, well, with most people, but not everybody. As lots of people have written about this, lots of people know about this, lots of people have discussed it, and deep diving into it. So, we're going to read the 3 stories, and I do want to point out that whoever Luke apparently is familiar with the Dionysus, the god Dionysus, the god of wine. And obviously so is John, the disciple John, because he's got Dionysus all over his book. It should be called the Book of Dionysus. the Gospel of John about Dionysus. Anyway, but Dionysus was the rock star, one of the rock star gods back then, and he's god of wine and other stuff, partying and sex and stuff. But he's one of them with a wreath on their head, and so around 400 BC there was a play written about this god Dionysus and other stuff. But in the play, um, it's the same thing. The guy gets knocked down. We're gonna go over that. The same thing. The guy get. As a matter of fact, it's not just acts. It's not just this the conversion story. It's other stories taken straight from Dionysus. And I mean the Bacchae, that play, and like when the chains, the shackles, like when Paul was in prison. I mean, not Paul. Was it Paul? No, it was Peter. Anyway, whoever was in prison when the earthquake happened and the doors opened, the shackles fell off, and they got to walk right out in front of everybody. I know it was Peter who was in the prison, and then they ran to the house and knocked, and the lady opened the door, and she was so startled she shut the door and ran away or whatever, ran back to her people. Anyway, but that all happened in this play, the Bacchae, and so did the where somebody got, when when Paul got lowered over the wall to escape, so they put him in a basket and lowered him over the wall at night so Paul could get out. Well, guess who that happened to? Yeah, in the play the Bacchae, same thing. So, and they even say things like, why are you persecuting me or whatever, like knocks a person down and confronts them, this big light thing, like whatever, this god, and then even says, quotes word for word that play, like, why are you kicking against the pricks, man, straight from the play. And I'm going to show you that. If you don't know, you'll be surprised. So a lot of the book of Acts is from that. I mean, even word for word, out of that, certain phrases right out of that play. And it was a Greek Roman thing, that was popular at the time. All right. Just like the Gospels have a bunch of Greek Roman, Greco-Roman gods and all kinds of stuff in the Gospels too. Anyway, but there's a lot of that going on here in Acts. So we're going to go ahead and read the 3 stories. We're going to read the 3 stories, and then we're going to go and see how they differ. And we're going to see where he pulled this from, that play back in. And just think of that. That was like I said, almost 500 years after, I'm sorry, 400 years, 500 years before Luke and even Jesus was even born. So anyway, obviously that's not going to be a question of who wrote it first, because this play was actually popular 400 years before Jesus was even born. I guarantee when anybody growing up back then would know about this play, and Jesus knew about it, no doubt. They all did. Anyway, so let's do this first version. Now, this first version is it starts right after. So we don't know Paul or Saul or whatever you want to call him. We don't know him yet. He's just coming into the picture. And a minute ago, he was holding the jackets for the people who were killing Stephen. All right. So in the chapter before this, in fact, if I can go back one, can I? What is that? Yeah. So really the story starts in chapter 8. Saul, maybe even chapter 7. So Saul is in the picture. Paul is Saul at this point. It comes in as Saul. Saul ravages the church. Saul approved of the execution of Stephen. Arose in great day persecution. So he's persecuting he's persecuting the church, putting his stamp of approval on these executions of Christians, including Stephen. But Saul was ravaging the church and entering house after house. He dragged off men and women and committed them to prison. So anyway, it goes like that. So Saul's in the picture before this Damascus story. Okay, so he's there. He hates Christians. He's killing them. He helped, participated in the murder of Stephen. And then you get into chapter 9. And this is where he has his conversion, or if you want to call it that. All right. So here in chapter 9:1 is the first story that you have where Saul gets converted from a Christian killer to a Christian, well, let's say a Jesus, because they didn't really have Christians. You say a Jesus, he went from killing supporters of Jesus to becoming a supporter of Jesus or follower of Jesus. So this is where the whole turn comes about in chapter 9 here. So this is the first story he tells of, or Luke tells, of the conversion of Saul Paul. And so up till now, he hates Christians. He's helping kill them. So story number 1. But Saul, still breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord, went to the high priest and asked him for letters to the synagogues at Damascus, so that if he found any belonging to the way, right? And by the way, this is what the followers of Jesus were first called. They were, well, I think they're even, I don't even know if it might have been before Jesus, but the followers of Jesus weren't called Christians at first. They were called followers of the way. Okay. So here, so that if he found any belonging to the way, which is, that's what they were called. They were called followers of the way. That's what they're first called. Men or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. Now, this is right now ridiculous because he has somebody in Syria cannot give, he's got no jurisdiction, nobody does, where he's going in Damascus. All right, it's like a police here, a police officer or whatever, getting in his car and driving to Canada and wanting to jump out of the car and arrest somebody. No, dude, you're out of your jurisdiction. So for Saul, this just would never happen. Okay, you can look into the history. So just think about this. Saul, still breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord, went to the high priest and asked him for letters to the synagogues at Damascus. This high priest here, wherever he is, in Jerusalem or wherever, this high priest has no authority to hand Paul letters to go kill people in Damascus. You can't, it would never ever happen. You don't even believe me? Check into this. Would Saul be able to go to the high priest wherever he is? He's in Jerusalem. Saul cannot go to the high priest and ask for letters to the synagogues at Damascus, so that if he found any belonging to the way, which is followers of Jesus, that's what they're first called, followers of the way, men or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. So you cannot go to another country Damascus, Syria. You can't go to all these other places and just grab people and bring them back. Anyway, they have no authority to do this. So, yeah, so that he may bring them bound to Jerusalem. You can't do that. So right there, this is a fantasy story, okay? Now, as he went on his way, he approached Damascus. Now, Damascus is in the Bible a lot of stories about Damascus. So it's just like, anyway, and suddenly a light from, now here, write this down. Suddenly a light from heaven shone around him. And falling to the ground, he heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Okay, same thing that they say, just something just like this in that play, the Dionysus Bacchus play, Bacchus, or whatever you want to call it. And he said, who are you, Lord? No. It's like, who are you, Bob? How do you know it's the Lord? Or why you, anyway. He's already answered his own question. And he said, who are you, Lord? And he said, I am, because, and Lord also means master. So he's answering the light that's talking to him. There's a light in the sky talking to him. He said, who are you, Lord? And he said, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. Which is funny because the same thing happened in the play. But rise and enter the city, and you will be told what you are to do. Okay, so note this. So, well, I'll show you the differences. But remember, he heard a voice. There was a light. He heard a voice. And somebody said, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And he said, I'm the Lord who you persecute. Rise, enter the city, you'll be told what to do. Okay, that's it. That's all Jesus said. The men who were traveling with him stood speechless, hearing the voice, but seeing no one. Now, later, this is going to change also. This is all going to change, this part here. Later, they're going to say something else. But in this version, they say, the men who were traveling with him stood speechless, hearing the voice, but seeing no one. Okay, so they heard the voice, but didn't see nobody. So did they see the light? Well, they didn't say that. They didn't see nobody. They heard the voice. You know, I was reading something. Somebody had a really good point. A really good point. And it might be in one of these articles I'm going to show you. But somebody had a really good point. Isn't it funny in this story that Saul is the only one that converts after this fantastic stuff? What about all these men who are traveling with him? Did any of them convert to Christianity? Nope. Because that would be kind of a good, Anyway, it's funny none of them converted. But anyway. So the men who were traveling with him stood speechless, hearing the voice, but seeing no one. Saul rose from the ground, and although his eyes were opened, he saw nothing. Okay, so he's blind. Remember that, because this is going to change in another story. Another story, he's not going to be blind at all. Okay? Although his eyes were open, he saw nothing. So they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus. Okay, so he's not riding on a horse. I don't know why. Maybe he wasn't on the horse. They never said he's on the horse. The only reason people think he's on a horse because of all these pictures. In fact, like one of the pictures I just picked out. Where is it? I don't know. I just pulled up a Google image of here. So if you pull up Paul Road, where is it? There's one I picked. Apostle Paul, Damascus. So if you pull up the thing Road to Damascus, every single picture you get is going to have a horse in it. This is what I picked with no horse. Because nobody said nothing about no horse. In fact, why did they lead him by the hand? You know what I mean? That means you're walking. You can't see nothing. I mean, if you're blind, so what? Get on the horse. Chop, chop. I mean, anyway, so I didn't put a horse in my thumbnail because, anyway, every story, though, Paul, you see the horses. And even the horses falling down. Look at the whole crowd saw him here. Anyway, So anyway, people think there's a horse involved because all these pictures that they show, everyone's got a horse in it. It's like the picture of Jesus. You know, I was watching a video. I'm not going to get too sidetracked, but I was watching a video the other night, and it showed. I can't remember who it was. It was a good one. It showed. Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, it showed who the picture of Jesus is. Did you guys know it was one of the Pope's nephew? They needed a picture of who Jesus would be, like a visual, so he got a painting of his nephew, and that's been Jesus ever since. The picture you know as Jesus is the Pope's nephew. Look into that story. That's crazy. Anyway, so here's all the pictures, and you know what's funny? When you see a picture like this, the reason why they're all different is because, okay, was this chapter 9, 22, or 26? Or whatever they were. I forgot which chapters. Yeah, wait, 9, 22, and 26. That's what it is. Yeah, so which picture is this? Is this chapter 9? Is that chapter 22? Is this chapter 26? Because, yeah, they're all different. Anyway, so that's funny. All right, so where was I? I was in the first version of the story. So, the men were traveling with him, stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no one. Saul rose from the ground, and although his eyes were open, he saw nothing. So he's blind. So they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus. And for 3 days, he was without sight. Remember that. 3 days he was outside. All right? 3 days. Mark that in your notebook or mental note, because this is going to change. For 3 days, he was without sight. So he's blind for 3 days and neither ate nor drank. Okay? So and it's not because he's fasting. He's bummed out. He just can't handle it. Now, there was a disciple at Damascus named Ananias. Interesting, isn't it? Ananias. Anyway, the Lord said to him in a vision. Okay, now there's a vision. So Ananias is having a vision of the Lord, and Ananias gets this message. Okay. Ananias, he said, "Here I am, Lord." They always say that too. "Here I am, Lord." And the Lord said to him, "Rise and go to the street called Straight." Now get this. At the house of Judas. Judas Iscariot? Anyway. At the house of Judas on Straight Street. Judas. Look for a man of Tarsus named Saul. And for behold, he is praying. All right, so he gets a message to go look for Saul. And he has seen in a vision a man named Ananias come in and lay his hands on him so that he might regain his sight. Okay, so Saul already has this vision that some guy is going to come in and heal him. But Ananias answered, "Lord, I have heard from many about this man, how much evil he has done to your saints at Jerusalem. And here he has authority from chief priests to bind all who come in your name." First of all, how do you know this, Ananias? Do you guys have phones, text, internet, email? How do you know? Number one, he can't come this far with any authority in his hand to arrest. And back then, you can't just arrest. As a matter of fact, think about this. The Romans are in charge of Jerusalem, okay? They're running the place. Romans are in charge. You think the Romans are going to give Paul a paper, let the priest give Paul a paper to go to Syria to go arrest Christians? Why don't you just arrest them in the neighborhood? Anyway, this makes no sense. And you can look this up. Check your history. Check this stuff. Would this ever happen? Would somebody in the temple in Jerusalem in the first century, would they be able to would the priests be able to give them papers to go arrest, bound and tie up Christians from another country and bring them back? Anyway, how much evil is done to your saints? And here he has authority from the chief priests to bind all who call on your name. Although I will tell you one thing. In the first century, the Romans were in control of Jerusalem. In 70 AD, they were completely destroyed, and they were complete control. But even way before, when Jesus was walking, long before Jesus was born, the Romans were in control. And that's why they were waiting for the Messiah so they could get their land back that they think is theirs. And but the Romans were in control. And that now Paul is writing, and Luke is probably, I don't know when Luke is writing, but anyway, it's either before or after the fall of Jerusalem. Either way, the Romans are in control. But anyway, so yeah, why would the Romans? It just would never happen. Anyway, them kittens are so cute. They're all playing out there, jumping and playing. But the Lord said to him, all right, here he has authority. So, but the Lord said to him, go, for he is a chosen instrument of mine to carry my name before the Gentiles and kings and to the children of Israel. Now, this is kind of interesting. Wait. I want to check on something once.
Because my education level is pretty,
Why does it keep, the video keeps coming on? Oops. All right. So, what chapter is it? Anyway, Peter is the one that got assigned to the Gentiles. But that's another story. Anyway, for he is chosen instrument of mine to carry my name before the Gentiles and the kings, the children of Israel. Now remember in the book of Acts, I can't remember what chapter it is, where Peter's on the roof waiting for his dinner, and he nods off, or he has this vision or whatever of the sheet coming down with the unclean animals, or clean and unclean or whatever. And at first he doesn't know what it means, and then later he's told to go to that guy's house, and he goes there and he baptizes the guy and his family, and they all got saved and everything. Because it was a really good guy, and God wanted him to go talk to him. So he goes there, and then it dawns on Peter that, God never, the whole thing about the sheets and the animal coming down, and he said, basically, that's what that meant, that I've never made any people unclean. That was the people unclean. So go, because he said, I don't want to go to this guy's house. Basically, he's unclean. And the whole message with the sheets and the animal was to go to that house. I never said nobody's unclean. So he went to the guy's house. I can't remember who it was. It was a guy that was really good to the poor and helped out needy and all that. Anyway, so the man was baptized and saved, so was his whole family and all that. And then, but anyway, Peter realized that it's his job to go to the Gentiles. So I don't know, why does Paul have to come in the story and go to the Gentiles? In fact, he never even met Jesus except this light shining through the sky. Anyway, but somehow Paul's going to come into the Bible, into the New Testament, and tell Jesus' disciples what time it is. He's going to put them in their place. Like, how does that make any sense? And like I said, I say it all the time. Remember, what did Jesus say before he died? Now, lo, if anybody says they saw me out in the desert or in a deserted place, don't believe them. And here comes Paul. Guess what? I saw Jesus in the desert. Like, really? Tell us about it. Like, didn't you remember Jesus said, if anybody comes after me and they say, I saw Jesus in the desert after he dies, once I die, if anybody says they saw me out in the desert, don't believe him. Now, where's Paul saying he saw Jesus? Out in the desert. Anyway, but we're going to believe him. All right. So anyway, and somehow he's got the authority from the chief priests, not the Romans, not anything else, to go to Syria or to go to Damascus and tie people up for being Christians and bring them back to persecute them in Jerusalem. Like, hey, William, good to see you tonight. Did he already take care of all the Christians there? Now he's got to start going to other places to get them. It makes no sense. Anyway, but the Lord said, go, for he's a chosen one, instrument of mine, to carry my name before the Gentiles and the kings and the children of Israel. For I will show him how much he must suffer for the sake of my name. The religious Jews, Talmudic at the time, were taught to believe that Gentiles were, yes, I understand that. Even being in their own homes is, yes. That's why at the woman at the well, he said, the lady's like, even she knows the Jews aren't supposed to drink out of their cups or even talk to them. Yeah. And that's why Paul gave Peter heck for sitting at the table eating with the Gentiles later on. And then, yes, they did consider them unclean. So the sheet coming down is supposed to tell Peter, hey, you can go to these Gentiles, and starting with this guy and his family, and then because they're not clean. Yeah. So Ananias departed and entered the house. Ananias departed and entered the house. Oh, wait, I missed one. For I will show him how much he must suffer for the sake of my name. So Ananias departed and entered the house. And laying his hands on him, he said, Brother Saul, the Lord Jesus, who appeared to you on the road which you came, has sent me so that you may regain your sight and be filled with the Holy Spirit. Okay, so Saul at the time, is going to get hands-on healing from Ananias. Okay, just like Saul already had the vision. Ananias got the word from the angel, whatever, so it's happening. And immediately, something like scales fell from his eyes, and he regained his sight. Okay, so he's blind. And this is where that song, I once was blind, but now I see. But anyway, the scales fell from his eyes, and he regained his sight. Then he rose and was baptized. And taking food, he was strengthened. For some days he was with the disciples at Damascus. And then he goes on to proclaim. Jesus in the synagogue. But I'm sticking with this road to Damascus story for tonight. So there's road to Damascus story number 1, chapter 9, verse 1 through 19. Next road to Damascus story, it comes along, and that was the first one told. Now the next one comes along in Acts chapter 22, verse 1 through 21. Brothers and fathers, hear the defense. Oh, by the way, I'm going to go to the chapter before this, because now the story is going to change, because Paul is now Saul, because now you're in chapter 22 and his name's already changed. Now he's going by Paul with no explanation or anything. But anyway, so he's going by Paul now, and he is actually so he goes to Jerusalem. Let me see how long this chapter is. So the chapter before the second story, in Acts 21, Paul is arrested in the temple. Okay, so Paul, so the chapter before the second story is told. Now the second time he tells it, it's different because he's standing in the Sanhedrin. Okay, he's in a court and he's being drilled, and he may even, I mean, anyway. So the rules are different when you tell a story. It's like if you're going to tell a story at the bar on a Friday night to your friends, or you're going to tell the story in a courtroom after you've been sworn in. You're going to tell it a little different, right? But not that different. And because when you're in a court, you have to, there's the rules. So you have to have 2 witnesses, right? So it's going to change a little bit, all right? So Paul goes to Jerusalem. What happens at Jerusalem? Paul visits James. Okay, that's supposed to be the brother of Jesus in Jerusalem. Who, and by the way, as the as the story goes, after Jesus was killed, his brother James ran the church in Jerusalem and did not travel with the rest of the disciples. But James himself, for many, many years, actually for decades, James ran the church in Jerusalem, and then they killed him. Actually, as the tradition of the story goes, is that Jesus' brother James, this James right here, and the book of James, they're in the later letters. What happens is that he was running the he was working in the church in Jerusalem for decades, and there was at one point either the governor or the king, there was a lapse in authority, and when that happens, like the king dies or they're interims or between leaders or whatever, the leaders at the temple took over. And as a matter of fact, that the temple, they anyway, they have the so those priests and everything, and the Pharisees and all that, they also are in charge of legal stuff. So in that interim, when there was no leadership, the Pharisees and Sadducees and all of them, I guess whoever it was, killed James, the brother of Jesus, when they were temporarily in charge. So they were very short and had a short term that they were in charge between leaders, and they took that opportunity to kill Jesus' brother James, who was running the church there in Jerusalem. And they actually they threw him off of the supposedly off the pinnacle, like the same place where Jesus was supposed to be tempted by the devil to jump off unless your foot has in the stone. Anyway, so James got thrown off of there, and then he didn't die. He hit the ground, and then they stoned him, and then he still didn't die, so they cut his head off. Anyway, that's how Jesus' brother died, according to the story. But so anyway, so now, and this James here. So Paul visits James. So first, this is right before Paul is going to go to court. And when Paul goes to court, part of his defense is going to be that his road to Damascus story, okay? Because they're going to say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? Because he's teaching stuff that they don't like. So anyway, his road to Damascus story is going to be kind of his alibi. So anyway, so the chapter before, Paul's headed to Jerusalem. He visits James. Then he gets arrested in the temple. So, and why does he get arrested for breaking the law? So Paul's arrested in the temple. When 7 days are almost complete, the Jews from Asia, seeing him in the temple, stirred up the whole crowd and laid hands on him, crying out, "Men of Israel, help! This is the man who's teaching everyone everywhere against the people and the law in this place. Moreover, he even brought Greeks into the temple and has defiled this holy place." Now that is true. For thousands of years, ever since they had a tabernacle, you cannot bring Greeks or anybody. In fact, you can't even bring certain Jews in there in that temple. So for Paul to bring a Greek in there, yeah, that was really, really bad violation of the law. And teaching against the law, yeah, these are things that you get killed for. Capital offenses, some of them. But anyway, so that's what he's going to. He's about to stand before the court, and he's going to tell his road to Damascus story. So now it's a little serious situation. So men of Israel help. Moreover, so he's bringing unclean Greeks into the holy place, which is, in fact, God himself. The whole Old Testament covers about how nobody can go in there, even the holy of the holies, and who can go where, and even the highest priest can only go to a certain place at one time a year, and they have to have clean rituals, and you can't touch a dead person or be around blood or blah blah. You have so many, you can't have relations with your spouse, or all kinds of stuff that they're very picky about that. The temple, the holy place. And yeah, for Paul to be parading Greeks through there, yeah, I can see why they're mad. Thousands of years, it just is a no-no. So anyway, for they had previously seen Trophimus the Ephesian with him in the city, and they supposed that Paul had brought him into the temple. Then all the city was stirred up, and the people ran together. That they seized Paul and dragged him out of the temple, and at once the gates were shut. And as they were seeking to kill him, word came to the tribune of the cohort that all Jerusalem was in confusion. He at once took soldiers and centurions and ran down to them. And when they saw the tribune and the soldiers, they stopped beating Paul. Then the tribune came up and arrested him and ordered him to be bound with 2 chains. He inquired who he was and what he had done. Some in the crowd were shouting one thing, some another. And as he could not learn the facts because of the uproar, he ordered him to be brought into the barracks. And when he came to the steps, he was actually carried by the soldiers because of the violence in the crowd. For the mob of the people followed, crying out, "Away with him!" So they are crying out for him to be killed. Now, Paul speaks to the people. He's about to start his story. So I didn't want to just start in the middle of his story. But this is what leads up to him telling this second road to Damascus story. It was this trouble. He's in a lot of trouble. As Paul was about to be brought in the barracks, he said to the tribune, "May I ask something to you?" And he said, "Do you know Greek? Are you not the Egyptian then who recently stirred up a revolt and led the 4,000 men to the assassins out into the wilderness?" Paul replied, "I am a Jew from Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no obscure city. I beg you, permit me to speak to the people." So he's pulling the Tarsus card. And when he had given him permission, Paul, standing on the steps, motioned with his hand to the people. And when he was there, and when there was a great hush, he addressed them in the Hebrew language, probably Aramaic, saying, Hebrew language, Aramaic at the time. He said, here's where the road to Damascus story starts. He said, "Brothers and fathers, hear the defense that I now make before you." And when they heard that he was addressing them in the Hebrew language, they came even more quiet, which is probably Aramaic. Quote, "I am a Jew, born in Tarsus in Cilicia, brought up in the city." Now get this, educated at the feet of Gamaliel. Was he? I don't know. Who knows? There ain't no proof, but brought up in this city, educated at the feet of Gamaliel, or the city at the feet of Gamaliel. And Gamaliel, it's like saying that Einstein was your teacher. Like, really? You studied with Gamaliel? That's pretty impressive if you did. But if you didn't, it's a pretty big lie either. Like I said, it's like saying, "Oh, my teacher was Einstein." Anyway, according to, because he was pretty big news there. According to the strict manner of the law of our fathers, being zealous for God, as all of you are this day, as they're ready to hang him. I persecuted this way to the death, binding and delivering to prison both men and women, as the priest and the whole council of elders can bear me witness. From them I received letters to the brothers, and I journeyed toward Damascus to take those also who were there, and to bring them in bonds to Jerusalem to be punished. As I was on my way and drew near to Damascus, about noon, a great light from heaven suddenly shone around me. Okay, there's a light. Enter light. And I answered, "Who are you, Lord?" And he said to me, "I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you're persecuting." Now those who were with me saw the light, but did not understand the voice, hear with understanding the voice of the one who was speaking to me. Now remember, before they heard nothing. But now they can't understand what the thing's saying. And I said, what shall I do, Lord? And he said to me, rise and go into Damascus, and there you will be told all that is appointed for you to do. And since I could not see because of the brightness of that light, I was led by the hand by those who were with me and came into Damascus. So again, the bright light, this story number 2, bright light, the bright light blinded him, temporarily blinded him, till he got led by the hand to Damascus. And one Ananias, a devout man according to the law, well spoken by all the Jews who lived there, came to me, and standing by me, said to me, Brother Saul, receive your sight. And at that very hour I received my sight and saw him. All right, we're going to find the differences later side by side. And he said, the God of our fathers appointed you to know his will, to see the righteous one, and to hear a voice from his mouth. Now, it's kind of talking a lot. They didn't say this before. For you will be a witness for him to every one of you, that for everyone of what you have seen and heard. And now, why do you wait? Rise and be baptized and wash away your sins, calling on his name. When I had returned to Jerusalem, I was praying in the temple. I fell in a trance and saw him saying to me, make haste and get out of Jerusalem quickly, because they will not accept your testimony about me. And I said, Lord, they themselves know that I'm in one synagogue after another. I imprisoned and beat those who believed in you. And when the blood of Stephen, your witness, was being shed, I myself was standing by and approving them, watching over their garments of those who killed them. And he said to me, go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles. And then they get together. So that's number 2. Now in here, you'll notice because in a court, you're in the Sanhedrin or whatever court you're in, Jerusalem, wherever you're over there. Well, in like many courts, but over there they needed 2 to 3 witnesses. It's always you need 2 or 3 witnesses, especially for a capital offense where somebody may be put to death. You need 2 or 3 witnesses. So that's, I think, why he added. You had Ananias was one of his witnesses, but now I think that's why he added that the guys that were with him saw the light too, and they heard what the guy was. They didn't hear what he said, but they witnessed what he was saying too. Now the third version of the story is in chapter 26, verse 9 to 23. So Agrippa said to Paul, you have permission to speak for yourself. Then Paul stretched out his hand and made his defense. I consider myself fortunate that it is before you, King Agrippa. Now, okay, a little different from the last time. I'm going to make my defense today against all the accusations of the Jews, especially because you're familiar with all the customs and controversies of the Jews. Therefore, I beg you to listen to me patiently. My manner of life from my youth, spent from the beginning among my own nation and in Jerusalem, is known by all the Jews. They have known for a long time, if they are willing to testify, according to the strictest party of our religion, I have lived as a Pharisee. Now I stand here on trial because of my hope in the promise made by God to our fathers, by which our 12 tribes hope to attain, as they earnestly worship night and day. And for this hope I am accused by the Jews, O king. Why is it thought incredible of you that God rises from the dead? I myself was convinced that I ought to do many things in opposing the name of Jesus of Nazareth. So I did so in Jerusalem. I not only locked up many saints in prison after receiving authority from the chief priests, And when they were put to death, I cast my vote against them. And I punished them often in all the synagogues and tried to make them blaspheme. And in raging fury against them, I persecuted them even to foreign cities. Now, like I said, really, you don't have authority to do that. They didn't now. They didn't then. All right. Now here's his conversion. Third story to Damascus, also told in Acts 9:1 and Acts 22. In this connection, I journeyed to Damascus with the authority and commission of the chief priests. At midday, O king, I saw on the way a light from heaven, brighter than the sun, that shone around me and those who journeyed with me. And when we had all fallen to the ground, I heard a voice saying to me in Hebrew language, or probably Aramaic, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? It is hard for you to kick against the goads. Now, this is funny because it's the same word for word they used in that play. Why are you kicking against the pricks or the goads? It's the same thing. It's a little spiky thing when you're plowing with when you have a horse or an animal that you're plowing with. There's little spikes on your plow, and so if they try to kick you, they kick those little prick things, and they don't like it, so they won't kick you. So they put those little pokey things, and so the donkey or whatever it is won't kick back. You know what I mean? At the plow, if they do, they get hurt. Anyway, those are goads or pricks. And I said, "Who are you, Lord?" And the Lord said, "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. But rise and stand upon your feet, for I have appeared for you for this purpose, to appoint you as a servant and witness to the things in which you've seen me, and to those in which I'll appear to you, delivering you from your people and from the Gentiles to whom I'm sending you, to open their eyes, so that they may turn from darkness to light and from the powers of Satan to God, that they may receive forgiveness of sins and a place among those who are sanctified by faith in me. Therefore, O King Agrippa, I was not disobedient to the heavenly vision." So see, he's saying, "Hey, there's a heavenly vision. I had to listen to it." But declared first to those in Damascus, then in Jerusalem, and throughout all the region of Judea, and also the Gentiles, that they should repent and turn to God, performing the deeds in keeping with their repentance. For this reason, the Jews seized me in the temple and tried to kill me. To this day, I've had the help that comes from God. And so I stand here testifying both to small and great, saying nothing but what the prophets and Moses said would come to pass, that the Christ must suffer, that by being the first to rise from the dead, he would proclaim light to both our people and the Gentiles. And and then, as he was saying these things in his defense, Festus said in a loud voice, "Paul, you're out of your mind. Your great learning is driving you out of your mind." Now, do you notice that this third story, he didn't get blind at all? He didn't have to go to, and why? Because this time he's standing again in front of the priest, and anyway, this one he didn't get, the third story he didn't even get blind. Nothing about a vision. Anyway, we're going to go through the differences because I know I'm at 114 now, so I'm going to go through some of these. So there's lots of articles on this. Lots. You can see so many people go over this. All right. Flying in. All right. Pantheus and Paul. Now, this is the play I was talking about where they're taking this stuff straight from a play called the Bacchae, which is 400 years before, or almost 500 years before any of them were around. So in line 794 of the play The Bacchae of Euripides finds the god Dionysus saying to Pantheus, "I would sacrifice him rather than kick against the goat in your rage, a mortal fighter against a god." Now this isn't it. This isn't all of it. So when Paul is recounting his conversion experience in Acts 26, when he says, we all fell to the ground, and I heard a voice saying in Aramaic, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Is it hard for you to kick against the goads? Pure speculation, but it's possible that Jesus, in order to show his divinity to Paul, an expression from Paul's studies that would bring to mind. So their excuse here is that, it's like somebody these days saying a line from John Wayne or something just to make them understand or something. So that's what they're trying to say. But most people, some say, well, they're using the lines from the play, so they'll relate to it. It's a play, okay. Anyway, Bart Ehrman has written about this. Bart Ehrman right when he says the Acts contradicts Paul's letters? I like Bart Ehrman's work. So these are just a few of the discrepancies that one can find when one reads Acts horizontally against Paul's letters. Many more can be discovered. What they show is that Acts cannot be relied upon for completely accurate detail when it comes to the mission of early apostles such as Paul. Since these contradictions are the 5 he had handpicked for his book, he must feel like there's some good reason to be the best. The strongest examples aren't contradictions. If the strongest examples aren't really contradictions, then that gives us good reason to doubt Ehrman, not Luke. So we'll see who's. I don't know how I can pull that thing up here down here. I might just shrink it because it's going off the page here. I don't know how to get it over there. There's no bar at the bottom. All right, so number 1, after Paul's conversion, did he go directly to Jerusalem to confer with those who were apostles set before him? So in Galatians, he says, Paul says in 1:16-20, Paul says, I was pleased to reveal his son to me in order that I might preach among the Gentiles. I did not immediately consult with anyone, nor did I go up to Jerusalem with the apostles before me, but I went into Arabia and returned again to Damascus. Then after 3 years, I went up to Jerusalem with Cephas, which is Peter, and remained with him for 15 days. None of us saw, this is his own words, but none of us saw other apostles except for James, the Lord's brother, which I'm writing for you. Before God, I do not lie. Remember, when Paul says, I do not lie, he also says, other times he says, yes, okay, sometimes I lie, but it's to help the kingdom. So other times he admits he lies. But anyway, so in direct contradiction to his testimony, where he said he went straight there to Jerusalem to tell everybody, he says, no, he didn't. He didn't go to Jerusalem. He went away into Arabia. I mean, he was gone. So what was he gone? 14 years or something in Arabia. And what was he studying with monks or something? Anyway, he didn't go to Jerusalem. In his story in Galatians, not even close. He went and spent, I don't know how many years in Arabia with whoever those people were. Who are they? The monks? Grace might know. But I can't remember right now. And then after 3 years, he went up to Jerusalem to visit with Peter. So this emphatic statement that Paul is not lying should give us Paul. He is completely clear. He did not consult with others after his conversion, did not see any of the apostles for 3 years, and even then he did not see anyone except Peter and Jesus' brother James. This makes the account found in the book of Acts very interesting indeed, isn't it? Because according to Acts 9, immediately after Paul converted, he spent time in Damascus with the disciples and then left the city and headed directly to Jerusalem, where he met the apostles in Acts 9, what we just read. In all counts, Acts seemed to be at odds with Paul. He did spend time with other Christians immediately. So let's read. So then we just did read Acts. So, by the way, if you want to know how long is many days, well, at that time when somebody said I was gone many days, it could mean up to 3 years, as long as 3 years. So I'd say, oh, I was basically that's saying I was gone for months and months. I mean, so anyway, it just tells you how they see that. So anyway, number 2, did the churches in Judea know Paul? Well, regarding Galatians 1:21-22, Herman writes, here again, Paul is quite clear. Sometime after he converted, he went around to various churches in the regions of Syria and Cilicia, but he was still known by sight of the churches of Judea. This has struck some scholars odd. According to the book of Acts, when Paul was earlier persecuting churches in Christ, it was specifically Christian churches in Judea and Samaria. That's that chapter we read before, chapter 9, chapter 8, remember? Now in Acts 8, 1-3, shows that Paul was persecuting the Jerusalem church, not the whole region of Judea. Acts 8:1 says that the believers in Judea were scattered throughout the regions of Judea and Samaria. Now, number 3, did Paul go to Athens alone? Again, Luke again appears to have gotten some details wrong. When Paul writes his very first letter to the Thessalonians, he indicates that after he had brought them to faith, he started a church among them. He traveled to Athens, and he felt concerned about the fledgling new church, and it sent his companion Timothy back to see how the Thessalonians were doing. So, for how many trips did Paul make to Jerusalem? Again, I'm going to put a link to this article up here. And then, were the congregations that Paul established made up of both Jews and Gentiles? It depends where you ask. First Thessalonians and Acts, completely different. So Acts seems it completely collides. It does not click together with Paul's letters at all. It's almost like Paul doesn't know about that story on the road to Damascus, except he told it twice in front of a bunch of people, and Luke told it once. Paul's contradictions, anti-Israel. There's a lot of contradictions, actually. All right, list of contradictions of Jesus by Paul. Now, there is some stuff in some of these. I'm not going to go through all these articles because I'm running short on time. I am going to. Now, this here. Did Paul base his story on that Bacchae? Did Luke, I should say, did Luke or Paul, whoever, base the story of Paul's conversion on the ancient play, the Bacchae by Euphrates? Acts Apostle has 3 somewhat different accounts of the conversion of Paul on the road to Damascus, Acts 9, 22, and 26. Not only does Paul never mention his experience, but it differs in material respects from what Paul does say about his conversion. Now, what I just got done saying is all the letters that Paul wrote, all of them, nothing about this. Nothing about the road to Damascus. Never. Now, why didn't Paul ever mention this in any of his letters? It's only in the book of Acts. It's almost like Paul knows nothing about that story. All 3 of them. So not only does Paul never mention experience, but differs in material respects from what Paul does say about his conversion. So as you can see, what Paul does say about his conversion in the letters, hey Omar, what Paul does say about his conversion, he does say it, but it's a totally different story how he went to all his different countries. If Luke did not learn from Paul, he might have been inspired to write this story from another source. Adka Ranki Henneman, author of Putting Away Childish Things, claims that parables between Acts and Bacchae mean that the story of Paul's conversion could have been inspired by the play. For example, he says that parallel passages has the god Dionysus complain to Pantheus about persecution. He says the same thing. Dionysus says to Pantheus, Pantheus, why you persecute me? Anyway, so the god Dionysus complains to Pantheus about persecuting him, just as Jesus complains to Paul about persecution. A well-known saying among the Greeks and Romans, but apparently never used by the Jews was kick against the goads. Now, again, this is something Jesus would never have said. All right, a Jew would never say this. The goad being the prod used to keep the ox working. Painful if you kick against it. She asks why Jesus would use a Greek saying to Paul, a Jew who would probably not understand it, and why Jesus would pointedly speak this Greek saying in the Hebrew language when we know he was quite fluent in Greek Kion. The text appears to be of Greek culture origin. What is the evidence for being specific? Now, where are we going? So it's like me telling you guys about like saying something like somebody from the UK would say, like, I got a cuppa. We don't know what the heck that means, but they do. It means they're getting some tea. But why would I tell you I'm getting a cuppa? That's something I don't say, and it's something you don't say. Neither one of us might not even know what it means. So why would Jesus say kick against the goads? He's a Jew. Paul's a Jew. They don't know that. Oh, Denny sounds really good. Now, there's a lot more than that, yes. So in Acts, it said, Paul heard the voice of Jesus saying, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? It's hard for thee to kick against the goads. With the King James Version using the English cinnamon pricks, same thing. Let's see. All right. So if further evidence that inspiration from the Bacchae is needed, we can look at Acts 16, 25, 26, in which Paul is given the opportunity to escape. This is what I talked about earlier. This is the same story that's in the book of Acts. Paul is given the opportunity to escape when there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were open and their feathers were unfastened. Remember, the shackles came off? Well, in the Bacchae, Euripides writes of the Maenads who were being kept in the city's prison. The chains on their legs snapped apart by themselves, untouched by any human hand. The doors swung wide open, opening of their own accord. Same thing that happened in Acts. I mean, your question, let's see. Yeah, so here's something for you. Can you imagine the ancient world where the people knew nothing of agrarian life, but only spoke in terms of Greek theater? Picturing a team of oxen pulling a wagon and the driver using a long, sharp stick to motivate the oxen, poking them in the buttocks. Oh, maybe they got the word ox from that, buttocks. Pun intended. But what do you think would happen? The ox kicked against a goad. They injure themselves. All right. All right. Let me keep going. I got a lot of tabs open. All right. Almost getting done here. The point of Dionysic myth and Acts of the Apostles. Pentheus. Here's another. I should split these up. Why should we expect Luke to have written like this? What are the chances of the author of Acts using this Greek play? And it was like 400 years before they were even around. Are we really expected Luke's audience would have recognized all the allusions? Today's audience don't. Why would Luke make use of a Greek play in a work of history? Because that's people are saying, well, they're using the Greek play to make points and stuff to relate people. No. All right. How do the dynastic parallels highlight key elements in the book of Acts Gospel? Okay, here we're going to go. First, note the key elements that are highlighted by Dionysic parallels. The arrest, trial, and crucifixion of Jesus. This is just like the Bacchae, the Dionysus story. And Pentheus, or whatever his name is. The story of Pentecost. Think about it. Same story. So when I learned about this a few years ago, I went online and it was torture, but I watched through these plays that they're talking about, the Bacchae and all that. They still have it to this day. Till this day, people are doing these plays to this day. So you can see a lot of them online, and you'll see these things that you'll say, oh man, that's in the book of Acts, or that's in the Gospels, or that's in Paul's letters, or whatever. The repeated trials of Jesus' followers, original apostles' first escape from prison. There's another one where he goes in the basket over the wall. That's also from the play. Original apostles' first escape from prison was with the earthquake and the shackles broke. The relative liberalism of Pharisees compared to Sadducees. Paul's conversion was the same as what's the name? Preethus, whatever. Paul's conversion, escape from prison, first by Peter, then Paul and Silas. The first converts from pagan rival religion. So here it is. Here's parallels, and this is the last thing I'm going to go over tonight. Let's see how long it is. So these are parallels side by side with the book of Acts and Bacchae. The apparently unruly Pentecost scene, these men are drunk, ushering in a new religion. Their arrest and imprisonment of the followers and the new devotees led us to warning of the wise elder Gamaliel that they might be fighting against God himself. When the Bacchae entered with a riotous reputation, their followers were interrogated, threatened, and warned to desist. The vulnerable blind seer, Tiresias, warns the persecuting ruler that they may be fighting against God. Isn't that funny? The guy who gets the blind seer warns that there may be fighting against God. They warn the leader, just like they warned Gamaliel. Next, Gamaliel's warning deters the high priests and Sadducees only momentarily. Just like Tiresias' warning is ignored. Then you have the arrest, interrogation, imprisonment, and miraculous escape. Same in the Bacchae. Arrest, interrogation, imprisonment, and miraculous escape. Same exact. And the same one, too. Earthquake, chains fall off, doors go open by themselves. They walk right out, nobody notices. The other one, he goes over a wall in a basket. Tells them, why you persecuting me? Quit kicking against the bricks. Anyway, so then there's arrest of Stephen and killing Stephen, just like they did. Just like Pentheus was breathing our persecution path. So Pentheus was going to persecute the Dionysus. Paul was going to persecute the Christians. The kicking against the pricks. Then you have Paul's physical blinding. Well, in two of the stories, he's blind. Accompanies his vision, Ananias. And Pantheus can see, but he's spiritually blind. Tiresias is blind, but can see the truth. So all of them are blind, and truth is involved. So Pantheus and Tiresias and Paul all had the same blind. One was physical, and Paul was both. Remember, Paul was both physically blind in two of the stories, and spiritually blind, I suppose. And here Pantheus is spiritually blind, and Tiresias is physically blind, but can see the truth. After Paul's conversion from persecutor to persecutee, King Herod Agrippa, next in line of the bad kings in Luke, becomes a persecutor. Pantheus, the persecutor, is the king of Thebes. Again, the same motifs. The persecuting king, being warned he's fighting against God, the making of the wrong choice. The king binds them and imprisons the leader of the new religion. God's servant miraculously escapes bonds and prisons. The king exalts him and is struck down by divine vengeance. Is that Paul and Luke? Nope, that's Pantheus and Dionysus. All right, and in here, Peter becomes the focus. He too begins with the God fighting moment after his vision, the sending of the Holy Spirit. He has no power to hinder God. King Herod imprisons Peter for the new movement, just like them. Peter miraculously escapes, just like them. Peter and Silas escape their bonds, just like them. Unless you found again, same thing. You're fighting against God, don't you know that? And then that person has to get blinded whatever way, and then after they recover, they have to go tell other people that they're blind too. Same story. Yeah, if you haven't seen the Bacchae, pick out a play. It's brutal to watch. It's not fun. Maybe I picked the wrong one. It was horrible. And maybe because I picked one with subtitles, you know what I mean? I don't know, maybe. There you go. So anyway, that's about it. I'm going to wrap it up. 3 stories of Paul, differing not only from each other, but really differing from his letters, the letters from Paul. And so just think about it, and like somebody brought up in one of the articles I read, isn't it funny how none of the people that were with Paul converted? Now, if God came down and Jesus, whoever, a bright light comes down out of the cloud, knocks everybody down, wah, 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 he's talking, whether sometimes they know he's talking, they don't know. But anyway, they're in the stories, they're going through all this with Paul. They didn't get blind, but Paul did. But otherwise, they did. How come none of them converted? Did they just get up, dust themselves off, and go home? They walked Paul to Straight Street to the house of Judas. And then what'd they do? Went back to persecuting Christians? Remember, these guys were persecuting Christians. Where'd they go? Where did all these men go that were helping Paul to go kill Christians and bound them and chain them? They brought Paul to the house in 2 of the stories. Remember, the 3rd story, he didn't get blind at all. He just stood up and took off on his mission. Not blind at all. But what about all these guys that were with him? None of them converted? They just turned around, went back to go get more Christians? You know what I mean? Anyway. Well, good to see you tonight, Omar. I'm glad your Denny's breakfast was good. I love Denny's. Told you the one I used to go to closed down. I saw the parking lot was empty and grass was growing all over the parking lot. And I saw somebody pull up, get out of the car, and pull on the door. I'm like, dude, the sign ain't even there anymore. Let someone be raised from the dead, if no ways will they believe. Yeah, but the problem with that is nobody has ever proven that they've been raised from the dead. I mean, unless you believe, but none of us have known anybody that came back from the dead. So you have to believe. on somebody's word, I guess. I believe our soul goes on after we die. I definitely do. And hopefully everybody will go to a good place. Anyway, so I'm gonna say good night, wrap it up. I need to my dog's snoring under my feet here. So I'm gonna say good night. Many of those who burned scrolls would have been written in Hebrew, hence the heavy Greek influence on scriptures to this day. How you for Dead Sea Scrolls, yeah. So good night to William. Good night to Omar. Good night to Grace. And anybody else that came in and listened. And if you're listening on the replay, thanks for listening on the replay. Yeah, you have a good weekend too. Everybody, I hope you have a good rest of the weekend. I hope you enjoy your Saturday, Sunday, tomorrow, or whatever day you're listening. I hope you're having a good day. Hope you all have an awesome day. And hope to see you tomorrow night. Tomorrow night will probably just be a short chat because usually there's a Sundays we usually don't have many people in here. Yes, Grace says thank you, Mama Cat, and everyone. Always an interesting dive. William, thank you for sharing your input and being active in the chat. Yes, William. I'm going to scroll through, look up some of your comments real quick. William says the religious Jews Talmudic is the time that taught, yep, the unclean. They didn't understand God's heart for bringing Gentiles in the kingdom of God, just as they didn't understand the prophecies of the Messiah. Elohim has shown me that I should not call any man common or unclean. The vision was not about meat, it was about man's tradition. Yep, for sure. People think that means that he could eat anything he wanted or something like that, but that's not what it was about. It was that people are not clean and unclean. I mean, just because they were Jewish or not Jewish. Yep. Come out from among separate. Do not touch what is unclean, and I shall receive you. Yeah. I shall be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me, he says, that God the Almighty. My house of prayer, if for all people. Actually, that is true. You know what, William? I want to do comment on that. William said, where is it? My house of prayer, it for all people. See that in Isaiah 56:7-8? I brought that up a long time ago. That now I don't know why the Jews only get to go there, because there's multiple verses in the Old Testament said that God's house is a house for everybody. So I don't know why the Jews were hogging it and not let nobody in there. But they didn't. Yep. My slaughter place for my house is called a house of prayer with all my people. Master Yahweh gathers out outcasts. Israel gathers still others him to him. Yeah. Through, yeah. Cleansing of the temple. That's because they were turning it into a slaughterhouse for money. That's using that temple to get rich off of. You know what I mean? Which they still do. The churches still do the same thing. They're getting rich off of people, just using the church for a way to get rich. They did it then, they're doing it now. Still doing it. Well, thank you, Grace, and thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming in. Anyway, appreciate it. Thanks for the thumbs up, and hope you all have a good time wherever you are. Day, night, evening, whatever it is. Hallelujah for making way for us foreigners and strangers. Oops. Almost hit the wrong button. All right, good night, everybody.